If you have not come out of my vagina, then I don't want to hear about your oozing orifices. Let me explain. One of the things that I find as an amusing self-reflection is I don't necessarily overshare with one person, but put me in a room with lots of people and I can't stop the verbal diarrhea, as my mother used to say. Have you heard of Landmark Education? I don't know if they're still around, but in the 90s, I did their basic training. It was often referenced to something similar to Anthony Robbins, like a big self-help motivational conference, I guess. They had a zero tolerance policy, so you start off feeling like you're in a safe space. I'd like 1,000 people. What I really enjoyed about that experience is that you're in a room full of people who have varied experiences. Not everyone gets up and talks about abuse in their childhood, so you definitely don't need to overthink that aspect if that's a trigger for you. In fact, some people had zero trauma and just felt stuck in their lives and heard about Landmark Education's basic training being helpful. It was over a weekend and one evening. The one evening, in hindsight, is easily skippable because that's more kind of their recruitment night where you're supposed to bring a friend. Anyway, it reminded me of a church in my area when I was a kid. They said if I bring a friend to church, we would both get an ice cream. FYI, I wasn't already attending that church. I believe my mother was like, fuck no, and took my friend and I out for ice cream. I feel like one of the benefits of doing that search into self in my early 20s was that it really showed me how we're all kind of the same. And I was in this group of, again, hundreds of people where I think I was like one of the youngest. They were adults up into like their 60s. Anyway, one interesting fact about myself is that I don't like to share personal body ailments, even to my doctors. I know I'm crazy. Nor do I necessarily want to hear about yours. As I mentioned earlier, unless you came out of my vagina, I don't want to hear it. Any of my 3 daughters can tell me absolutely anything without fear of judgment and in great detail. I am here for them. My husband, on occasion, has gotten into a brief descriptor, which I immediately derail and say, you have been inside my vagina. You have not come out of it. Therefore, you do not have the privilege of pulling back that curtain into the depths of your bodily functions. Okay, well, he has come out of my vagina. Like he's not technically still in there right now. In 2021, we began our descent to leave Singapore. I had a friend who had a lot of health issues, as do I, and we commiserated often. One day, I randomly get a hemorrhoid. Bear with me. I know this is a normal kind of thing in life to happen, but I was devastated and grossed out. Now, you can develop hemorrhoids during pregnancy. Dodge that bullet. Lifting heavy things can also cause hemorrhoids. Anyway, I don't really think that there's anything that I was doing at the time that caused any of this. And I think, well, it must have been health related. So as I was talking to my friend about our health issues again, and as I said, I am not the kind of person who shares details in this depth, as trusting another human has always been an issue. Well, she burst out laughing and told me to stop sitting on the toilet reading my phone. I was so taken aback because I thought this was the least helpful advice I've ever received from anybody. And I'm most definitely not a sit on the toilet getting distracted at the task at hand person because fucking you, I'm a germaphobe and sitting on a toilet longer than what needs to be makes zero sense. And it's completely disgusting. I was also disappointed in my friend's remark and honestly it reminded me of how not to share personal stories with anyone ever again. So here I am on my podcast telling all, so you're welcome. Anyway, I Googled because Google will not make fun of you. And what I found, yet to be confirmed by an actual doctor other than Dr. Google, was perimenopause increases hemorrhoid risk. Hormonal changes, falling estrogen levels during perimenopause affect collagen and elastin production, weakening the connective tissues in the anus and making them more susceptible to developing hemorrhoids. The other is digestive changes, weakened pelvic floor, reduced tissue support. Well, it's a fucking nuisance, I tell you. I ended up Googling and finding a review for some product that claims to be a miracle worker to get rid of your hemorrhoid. I ordered it. I was skeptical because it's not medication and I'm kind of like science for medical kind of person, but pun intended, it worked. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I don't know. I'm trying to make a word here. It's a fucking miracle. Now, basically, my hemorrhoid has reduced down to a skin tag. And if you go into the show notes, you will be able to click on the magical miracle and order it. I am not a doctor. That is definitely not medical advice. This is just what worked for me. At 54 years old, I finally got the nerve to talk about it with my doctor. And she said that it has an active ingredient that she recommends something similar to her patients. So, I didn't fail miserably on that. I also asked her about essentially the skin tag left behind, which she said, unfortunately, hemorrhoids never really go away. Once you have one, you're stuck with it. Anyway, this brings me to today's episode where my guest has a podcast herself. We talk about how we really need to be authentic, sharing the positive and the negative with relatable experiences to help our peers and future generations deal with peri and menopause. The time is now for women to have strength in numbers. Or is it more misery loves company? Welcome to the Fuck You 50s, the podcast for women who refuse to tolerate the bullshit anymore. This is real talk, real stories, and a long overdue reality check. I'm your host, Andrea Claire, and this podcast is the filter-free voice you've been waiting for, with a dose of F-bombs, the Fuck You 50s, unfiltered, unapologetic, and undeniably needed. My next guest is Bridgett Garratt, the co-host of Hot Flashes and Cool Topics podcast, the voice for women in midlife and beyond. She and her co-host, Colleen Rosenblum, started their podcast 6 years ago when they were looking for answers to the many questions that we have as women in this time of life. They're never afraid to call bullshit, a metric that they have fully embraced. We talk about age bias, the Karen phenomenon, how the success rate to adding testosterone for HRT still seems to be influenced by the needs of men, and more. Bridgett, welcome to the Fuck You 50s. It's great to meet you, Bridgett.
Nice to meet you too.
I've been listening to some of your episodes of your podcast, and it's great. I really love it. I mean, obviously, we're kind of all in,
the same boat.
that.
I've been listening to yours too. So
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
really
you so
great.
much.
I love the talks. I love the topics, and my hair looks weird right now.
I was using just like earbuds before, like that would still kind of like connect in, but it's like I'm part Danish, and I always feel like I have like a big face. I'm like, you know what? I need headphones. My face seems smaller.
It's funny. It's like I could see the ring lights, like my glasses, and I'm like, oh god, I got to move this stuff.
Yeah. With my podcast anyway, I just use like little snippets for like teasers, but
Sure.
Otherwise, like it's just like the audio. I'm by trade I'm a hairstylist and makeup artist, so I work on a lot of photo shoots and things. And I used to be on makeover shows like a million years ago. And there it's like we had a studio, we had directors, we had people that lit us. I just had to be the talent, right?
Yeah.
And so to kind of like do it all yourself. And I'm always like, oh my God, the lighting's not right. Like this. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's like Colleen and I weren't really part of that world. And it's like, oh God, we're just like, trying everything out.
So tell me, I guess like to kind of like, how did it all start for you guys?
Well, Colleen and I, we're both from completely different areas, but we live in the same neighborhood now. And we moved there, I guess, probably about 10 years ago. And one day we were at lunch and just talking about questions that we had about this time of life. Like, this doctor told me this, and this doctor told me this. I think at first we said we wanted to be a BS meter. Yeah, like, what the heck? This is
God,
BS.
I love that. Yeah.
And Colleen was winding down her career. She had been a lawyer, and then she was a Pilates instructor. I had been a teacher, and then I was dabbling in acting, was not really going far. And we just were kind of ending both of those second careers. And she's like, well, let's just do this. Let's do this podcast. How hard could it be? We didn't know what we were doing. But, that's kind of how it started. And we started in 2019, right before lockdown and all that stuff. And then during lockdown, with Zoom and with remote recording and everything, a lot of people wanted to talk. They wanted to talk to people. So it just kind of happened. We got to get a lot of guests because people were home and they wanted to talk about these things. So that's kind of how it went. From there, it's like we were throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what worked. Some things didn't. We tried it out, didn't. But that's just kind of how it went from there. And we're going on year 6. So.
Wow, that's so great. So within like the topic of like middle age and menopause and all that it all encompasses, would you think that you guys were probably one of the OGs?
One of them. I know there were a few because I actually, we both looked up and were trying to find, and there were a few out there, but there were very few out there. And we actually went to there happened to be a podcasting conference in Atlanta, which we live in the Nashville area. That's only 4 hours away. We drove to Atlanta and we met a few other women that had different topics. Like they might have concentrated on one particular topic. One was travel, one was health, one was exercise. And we kind of wanted to talk about a lot, anything and everything
Yeah.
that we are doing at this time of life. One was
Yeah.
on empty nest. And we kind of wanted to talk about all of that. We kind of all got together and had each other on each other's podcasts and things like
Yeah.
that, and really met a lot of people that way. But I'd say we were, one of the first, and now it's everywhere. But that's great. We've met so many great women,
Yeah.
and we have learned so much from all of these different women.
Well, and like you were saying, like to be like a BS meter, I think is fantastic because there is so much information out there. And I think all of us to kind of get together and have a voice and have an opinion and maybe either do some research or have professionals on our podcast where we can share information that's not BS. And I don't know about you guys, but I get people that, which is flattering, people want to be on my podcast as a guest, right? And there's some topics where I just kind of look at them and I kind of think like, it seems to be almost on the fence of, is this like legit or like not, like, I don't want to offend anybody out there, but I think of like there's a lot of like coaches, like life coaches
Exactly. I
and
was
stuff.
about to say coaches. Yes.
So no offense to like the legitimate coaches out there, but I
Right.
feel like it's become such a mass market of like not everybody can be a life coach,
Right. I
and a
mean,
menopause
when you're
coach and
right, you're getting this quick certification. And I mean, we're not coaches. And Colleen and I always say we are not professionals in this arena. We will find the professionals where it comes to healthcare, fitness, travel, anything. We will find the psychology, mental health. We will find the experts in that
yes, I
area.
understand what you mean. Yeah.
Right. But we are very hesitant when it comes to coaches. Like we do look through, okay, what's their training? What's their
Yeah.
certification?
Yeah.
And just the same, we'll get pitches as well
Yeah.
that some of them are fantastic. Some of them are like, and some of them I really appreciate the ones that say, hey, I'm not a professional at this, but this is my story. And sometimes it's really great to share those personal experience stories.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love those. Those tend to be my kind of favorites, like the personal stories. And then and that's what I feel like a lot of my guests are, like people that have like their personal stories and projects that they're working on and sharing. And then just some of the roadblocks that they hit, when you are in your 50s. I find it fascinating. I think each guest that I've had has talked about starting something new and they kind of reiterate like it's never too late,
Right.
never too late to start something. So I think it's such a great message. So yeah, so tell me a little bit more about kind of what you guys have been working on. Like, do you have any reoccurring guests or reoccurring topics, or do you have? Let me just throw a ton of questions at you at once. Or do you have like listeners that kind of send you kind of like the same requests for topics?
They do. Usually it is a lot around menopause, midlife. Like the big ones are menopause, midlife, empty nest. Those are really big ones. We do have we've had repeat guests on Dr. Heather Hirsch, Dr. Mary Claire Haver. They have been repeat. Stacey London has been I'm trying to think how many times. I know we've had her on the podcast at least twice,
Yeah.
but she's just always a lot of fun and new things are happening and new adventures are on there. And especially when they've written a book and then they're in the process of writing another book that is very helpful to women. And then sometimes just fun things like just fashion or even decorating. We've had just like clutter-free stuff, people on, how to declutter. I think we've had 3 different people on decluttering.
Yeah, I saw one when I was perusing to kind of like listen to another one this morning as I was getting ready. And I saw one on decluttering, which that's why I have this
Yeah.
this sheet up behind me so you can't see it.
I love the slop comes clean. We had her on a few years ago, but we did in July. We both, like Colleen, went somewhere and we both are different places. So we do we replay some of our old episodes. And that was such a popular one. I mean, because she did it in a way that you're not going to leave your house in a bigger mess. So I love Dana K. White. She was awesome.
So, do you guys have any great episodes upcoming that you would recommend that people tune into?
Wow. Yeah, we do. So this week we have Carrie Devine, and she started Hot in Charleston, and we're going to actually do an event with her October
Okay,
14th in
nice.
South Carolina,
Yeah,
in Charleston.
yeah,
And it's going to be, we've done 2 or 3 live events.
yeah,
We've had one in Nashville. We've had 2 in New York City that we've worked with other people on. And they're always fun. They're a lot of work. It's a
yeah.
lot of work to do them. But it is great to get those people together. So we are going to have an event. And I think this one we're going to include some perimenopause in it because that was a surprising thing to me. I didn't even know what perimenopause was when I was going through it. I didn't know there was a name for it. I'd heard of menopause. I mean, I'm the 11th of 12 children. So I have a lot of older sisters. There are
Yeah.
10 girls, 2 boys. So I have a lot of older sisters. So I saw some of them go through it really rough. Some of them just floated and just breezed right through it.
It's funny how everybody can be completely different
And
too,
we're
right?
sisters. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're sisters. But never Perry. And so we're wanting to let this, next generation realize you could be in your mid 30s and
yeah,
be starting perimenopause.
yeah.
And we want them to, we want to bring them along for the ride. And also we want to extend past because now Colleen and I are both postmenopausal.
Okay.
I was postmenopausal a long time ago. I mean, that just hit her like 2 or 3 years ago. So, we're both in that stage and we're starting to learn and learn from other guests that we've had all these neat things that they're trying after they've hit 60. It seems to be this magical number. And I'm like,
Okay.
wow,
Yeah.
nobody told me that. Like, I'm excited to turn 60. I'm really thrilled.
I'm just 54. So, and I still, I guess I'm still in my perimenopause stage and just kind of going back to like how everybody is so different with what we experience and what we go through. But I still get my period, right? And so I guess that's what kind of keeps you in perimenopause, right? But,
Yeah.
and then I also like, I haven't had a hot flash and like some of this like stereotypes, like I think on one of your episodes, I don't know if it was you or Colleen, but one of you were talking about having some rage issues.
It probably was both of
Okay.
us.
I mean, my family might disagree, but I don't think I've had any rage issues aside from one time I slam dunked a toaster on the ground. But I think that was warranted. So I don't know if that was perimenopause or not. But I also got a fabulous new toaster after that. But I don't know if you know Michelle McKell from This Is Perimenopause, but they were on an episode of my podcast and I was on an episode of theirs. So I can't remember where we had talked about it, but Michelle had talked about rage that she had gone through. And I find that so fascinating to hear the rage stories because
Yeah.
I didn't even like, because I haven't had that. And maybe too, I'm a redhead, right? So maybe I've just had that my entire life.
And it is so funny because Colleen really didn't have the hot flash part, but she had the brain fog. And I think I had them all. But like oh my gosh, I was getting hot flashes like constantly. I mean, 10 an hour. I was
Oh
just,
my
if I
God.
moved, if I swept the floor, I would just break out in a sweat. And mine started with night sweats, and I didn't know what that was. I was still teaching at the time, and I remember a fellow teacher said to me, "Oh, yeah, those night sweats." And I'm like, there's a name for this? My gosh.
Yeah.
And so, that started for me. I think I had it all. And honestly, it was one of the contributors to me leaving my job. Not the only one. Like I left teaching because my son had already started college. My daughter, I had 2 more years at home with her. And it was hitting me like, oh my gosh, I've only got 2 more years left with this kid. And then my mother was really, really sick. She was declining. And I was like, I don't have much time left with my mother. But I think that the menopause and I was still perimenopause when I left my job. And I think that had something to do with it. Things that were starting, I was becoming scattered. My lesson plans weren't what they were, that I could always be on top of them. And now I wasn't. And I thought, I'm going to lose a kid in class if I don't quit this job. So no, I'm sure it contributed because it scared me that I was in charge of a lot of children. And it actually made me nervous that something was going to happen because of my brain fog or something like that. So,
You're like, where am I?
I know. Who are you? How did I get here? But it did, I've heard so many women. I have heard that story that so many women have left their jobs because of perimenopause. And that's
Do you
another.
think some of that too is also, I mean, sure, brain fog, of course, and
Mhm.
not to discount that. But do you think some of that too is also just like a priority shift?
It could be. It
Yeah,
could be because I think, well, for me, that came into factor. Priority was my child. Priority was my mother. So that was a shift. I was starting to realize how much time I had left with these people. And, I think that could be it. It could
yeah,
be I don't want this career anymore. And they
yeah.
switched to another
What
career.
age were you teaching? What was your class?
I was young, kindergarten, first
Oh,
grade,
okay.
second grade,
Yeah.
different grade, those
So it's probably
elementary.
bad anyway to lose them.
Yes, it would be very bad. Boy, those little ones can dart. I didn't want to be one of those teachers that was just hanging on because you see them that just are hanging on till they reach retirement age. I wanted to still like these kids.
Yeah. Go out with a bang on your own
That's
terms.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so that was part of that.
Yeah.
And then some places are really trying to implement recognizing menopause in the workplace. I know Carrot Health is really trying to do that. They also work with fertility and infertility, but they also are implementing working with menopause in the workplace and to kind of bring it out of this taboo thing. Like, okay, let's just put it out there. This is what it is. This is what we go through. And, quit making fun of menopause. Every woman that's lucky enough to live this long is going to go through it. And, let's put it out there. Let's recognize it and let's get some help for it.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I agree. And it's like I have a sense of humor. I'm all for like making jokes about like changes in life and what we go
Right.
through and everything. But I do find that there's too much of a, especially for our age category, that there's too much of a like discounting, the middle-aged woman. And I'm a very strong believer, and I know you guys had mentioned this on one of your podcast episodes too about the whole concept of a Karen. And for me, I feel like Karen is a very like definitely there can be some extremes, but I do kind of think like when you reflect about the age category that label is hitting, it's I feel like it's like so we lose our tolerance for certain things, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay for us to have our boundaries, right? And to
Right.
say no, and to add that joke of like asking to speak to the manager. Like there's nothing wrong with that. There are some situations where to say no, to demand customer service, to ask to speak to the manager. I feel like too often now, if a woman is around our age category and we're getting kind of frustrated with customer service or with somebody or whatever, right away they're like, oh, don't be such a Karen. And I just want to be
Yes.
like, fuck off.
Yes. Cause no, I felt like them like, no wonder because people have ignored us for so long.
Yeah.
No wonder we reach that point
Yes.
because we've said something over and over and over
Yes.
again. And then it's like, uh,
And that doesn't
yeah,
excuse the extreme. Like there are definitely
right.
some of the extreme behaviors that are just bad behavior that nobody should accept. But I think that if we're just trying to set our boundaries to say, like, sorry, can you please remake my coffee? There's too much milk in this. And
Yeah.
then just suddenly it turns into you're a Karen. It's like, I'm not a Karen. I'm just paying $7 for
For
coffee
a
and I'd
cup of
like it
coffee
made
that I
right.
would like. Yeah, the right way. And, and it is such a bias because men, that doesn't happen to men
You're
like it
right.
does to women. And that, I don't know, some people might think I had a Karen moment a few weeks ago on the pickleball court, but all the, it's such a first world problem. It is such a, but we have like in our neighborhood, the men have open play on Saturdays and the women have open play at a different time. And it was 9 to whatever, 12 for women and all the women show up. And there was a few men taking the courts. Well, at first I'm like, well, there's not enough women to take those 2 courts they're on. Okay. Well, then more women showed up and these men are still playing. And some women had asked them, well, they said that on the reservation page, it says 10 now. They changed it. I'm like, nobody was notified. So my sister lives in my neighborhood. And so we walk over
Yeah.
and we said, I'm sorry, but there's some confusion. I'm sorry, you need to look at the reservation page. My sister holds up her phone and said, on this page, it says that it's 9 to whatever for women on the front page. Well, you have to, one guy got real crappy, real shitty. And he's like, sorry, you have to look at the reservation page. The other 3 men were being reasonable. And I kind of went, anyway, you can sigh all you want. Well, I said, what an asshole. And the other 3 men were so embarrassed for that man, at that man, that they were like, we're sorry. We are so sorry. There's obviously been some confusion. We'll go on now. Like my sister said, why do you think all these women are here? Why do you think they're here? So they left and that one asshole went around to every woman's court saying, just so you know, next week it's 10 o'clock. It was so funny. We're like, ooh, what'd you say? And I'm not
Yeah.
like that. I
Yeah.
am not like that. Like Colleen is the one that will go out and ask, could we have this? Could we have that?
I like how he's mansplaining scheduling to you.
I've really had it with men treating women badly. I've really
Yeah.
had it. And
Yeah.
I have a wonderful husband. He wasn't there. He doesn't like playing with those men. But
Yeah.
that's kind of Karen moments. And I don't know if you call it a Karen moment because,
The thing is I
yeah,
definitely would not, but I feel like there's
yes.
some people out there that would. And this is kind of my point is just like, I feel like it's too quick to kind of throw
Hmm.
that. You see a woman of a certain age that's just demanding her spot or her space,
Right.
and we're entitled to that. So,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
again, I always preface it, with there are the extremes and the extreme behavior.
Yeah.
But that's not acceptable. Like
No,
anyway.
no.
So
And I think when I said the a-hole word, I scared a man. I mean, I don't know. But the three other guys, they were so embarrassed.
it's funny. Like I've always been one that like I'm such a rule follower, and I don't know why but I get my knickers in a knot when people are not following the rules, and I sometimes I just need to like talk myself down because. And it's not even like I vocalize it all the time, but it gets me upset. And I just have to be like, when people cut lines or when they're
Yeah.
driving, they don't put on their signal, like just things that like it's
Right.
just a rule, It's
Right. Right. No,
it's a
I
society
am the
rule. I'm like,
same. I am the same way. My daughter is just like, just be quiet. Just be quiet. Just be quiet, mom. And
yeah,
I'm pretty quiet about it.
I
It's
also am a believer of karma, right? So I just
yes.
kind of think someday karma is going to get me.
Right. 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 It's gonna that's
Or
so
maybe I'm just a
funny.
vindictive bitch.
No, Colleen and I and 2 or 3 of our other friends were playing trivia one night, and somebody was listening to our answers. So one of the friends started saying the wrong answer out loud. Oh, yeah, we can be petty. We can
Oh
be
my God.
petty. Yeah.
I love that. I'm
It's
gonna steal
so
that.
and they were copying our answers, and we ended up winning, and they were copying the wrong answer when the friend said it loud.
There you go.
It's
There's
just
a
yeah.
life lesson. Don't
It
copy from your
don't
neighbor.
don't copy. It's so funny. We had, gosh, a while back, Bevy Smith. She used to be on Fashion Queens, and she was a guest. She'd written a book called Bevelations, and it was really some of her quotes are fantastic. And she said, "I am something petty. I am Tom Petty from Petticoat Junction." Which it was every word with petty. I thought that was so
Oh my
funny.
God. Okay, and Petticoat Junction, I used to watch that when I
I
was a
did
kid.
too. I
It
did
was one of my
too.
favorite shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I loved it.
So once in a
Loved
while
it.
when I bring it up and people tend to glaze over, so
No,
I'm
no,
so
no, I
happy you
know
mentioned.
it. I
Yeah.
know it. Those 3 girls, yeah, with the
Yeah.
barrels, yeah.
What do you think has been like a big kind of misunderstanding or misconception that society has about women in their 50s?
I think the misconception, they don't understand what's going on in women's bodies, and they do not take them seriously. That is the biggest thing is they don't take them seriously, just like we were just talking about when we want to be taken seriously, and that's in the medical world. That
Yeah.
is scary in the mental health world and in the medical world. That is a big problem. And that's something I've learned from doing this podcast with the number of physicians that we've spoken to,
Yeah.
learning about the Menopause Society. I had never heard of it until we started doing this podcast.
So same, like I didn't know about the Menopause Society either. And it was just before I started my podcast, I have high blood pressure.
Hmm.
And I was reading Dr. Jen Gunter's book, and there was I honestly have not read it word for word, but I'm a flip through kind of
Yes.
person, so
Yeah.
maybe I
Yeah.
should read
Sure.
it cover to cover to get more
It's
information.
been a while for me. Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a spot where she talks about high blood pressure, hypertension, and that it could be part of the perimenopause, menopause. Anyway, so I went to see, it's a long story, so I won't get into the whole thing. I had a really bad experience with a male doctor, and I wrote about it. I have a Facebook page for my hair and makeup, but I obviously go rogue. It's not just about hair and makeup. But I wrote about my experience with this hypertension specialist, and because he wanted to be extreme and give me like 3 more medications. And I just said, like, I feel like we need to figure out the source before I start. Like, I'm not anti-medicine, like I'll
Right.
take it, but I
Right.
need to understand it first. And then he said, well, I don't really know much about menopause and hypertension for women, but I can tell you that you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke within 10 years. And So I wrote about that experience, and then somebody sent me a private message who's from Australia, actually. And she
Mhm.
said, here's a Menopause Society Canada, because
Oh,
I'm
they have one in
Canadian, right?
Canada, that's great.
So then I found a menopause specialist, made an appointment with her and talked to her about it. And, and then I just got more information. Like she said, yes, hypertension, high blood pressure can be perimenopause, menopause. And she said it's not often that women get taken off the hypertension medication, but she said it can, yes, like once you finish menopause, or I guess not finish, but enter menopause, then it's possible you might not need the medication anymore.
The same thing happened to me. So I am on a very low dose hypertension, but I do hormones. Colleen does not. She really didn't have like the symptoms of hot flashes, the
Hmm.
vasomotor symptoms, what they call them, which I didn't know what that was until we
Okay.
started this podcast. But
Yeah.
she didn't really have the hot flashes and things like that. She is kind of like thinking she does have osteopenia.
Okay.
So she is considering, should I start estrogen and progesterone if you have your uterus? You've got to have progesterone with it. And she is considering it for the osteopenia. But the studies, like there are studies out there that are showing that it can help with osteopenia and possibly brain health. I don't know if there are enough studies out there to like for them to say a definitive answer, but there are a lot of studies out there that are showing that.
What's osteopenia? I don't know what that is.
It's right before osteoporosis.
Okay.
She has her bone strength is not, her bone density is not as strong. And, it's been really incredible just learning too about that. We've had Dr. Vonda Wright, who's an orthopedic surgeon on, and just the importance of weight bearing exercises and weight lifting exercises, really heavy weights, like not like 100 pounds or something, but instead of like the 2 pounds and doing as heavy as you can, like even if you only can do 5 and then
Right.
she said jumping rope, just getting some bashing your bones like that.
But jumping rope can be challenging too.
Yes. But even if you just jump up and down, if you
I'm
just
just
jump
kidding.
up and down, like
Yeah.
not even like jump up and down 20 times or something like
I
that.
was just meaning more of a joke of like, then you just like wet your pants.
Oh yes, yes. We've had great doctors on about that too, about urinary. We just had one on 2 weeks ago, Dr. Sarah Reardon, who was fantastic, a pelvic floor physical therapist.
Yeah.
And just I've learned so much there.
Yeah.
Part of that I wish I'd learned before I had children. But it is amazing though, discrepancy in women's health. It is unbelievable. I couldn't believe we've had a woman on, Keisha Stewart, that wrote a book about her heart. And I wish I could remember the name of her book, but she had a SCAD heart event where like a part of her aorta had torn and she was still pretty young.
Yeah.
To get somebody to listen to her. It's amazing she didn't die. That she was in the hospital and finally one nurse looked at her and said, that woman's having a heart attack. She said she sat there for 20 minutes. When you go into the hospital, I have a sister that was a nurse. It's like, you tell them something's wrong with your heart, even if it isn't. Tell them you're having chest things so they take you back there.
Yeah.
And this lady did. And they weren't listening to her. And on top of that, she is Black. She's a minority. So they
Right.
really, there's the statistics out there that show, first of all, women in comparison to men, how they are not listened to. Then if you're a minority, it's even worse.
Yeah.
So this woman almost died because they wouldn't listen to her. And it's amazing that she lived and that she wrote the book and we learned about SCAD heart events. But it is amazing just to hear how they're dismissed. And then we also have women like Dr. Kelly Casperson, who's a urologist recently. I think Dr. Heather Hirsch, I think Dr. Vonda Wright, and there was someone else, another great doctor, went to the FDA to have the warning label the black box label taken off vaginal estrogen and to ask for testosterone to be FDA approved for women. Those two
Yeah.
important things.
And that's just been
Testosterone.
recent, right? Wasn't, because I feel
Yes,
like
that
Dr.
was
Jen
like
Gunter was
probably
talking
in
about it too.
the past month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably in the past month.
It's interesting. I don't know if you guys have nurse practitioners in the U.S., but here
Yes.
there's nurse practitioners, and I have a friend of mine that's going through to be a nurse practitioner now, and it's interesting because she said to me that they have the same ability for prescribing as a doctor. Everything is 100% equal. She said, except for testosterone.
Hmm.
She said that's
Hmm.
the only thing that they're not allowed to prescribe,
Right.
which I find. Do you know why that
That's
is?
Don't know, because I have my gynecologist story. I went finally, so when I was going through perimenopause, and it was right around when my mother died, we were at the wake for my mother. And one of my cousins, who's a few years older than me, said, I'm good on hormones. Well, at this time, I still thought, ooh, hormones, cancer, And I said, oh my gosh, I would do it, but aren't you scared of cancer? My cousin was like, I don't care anymore. I've got to do something. I can't live like this. And then in a few years, I was just where she was. And so when I moved to Nashville, I was like, you know what? I've had it. I'm going to ask about it. And I was also the weight gain, also gained like 20 pounds or probably close to 30 pounds. And so I went to this gynecologist, new doctor. She was like, oh, no, no, no. I think she said, my mother had a blood clot. And she said, oh, your mother had a blood clot. Well, what'd she have? And I didn't know. I was like in college. I don't know what
Yeah,
caused her blood clot.
yeah,
Well, you better ask her. And I'm like, well, she's dead.
yeah.
So I can't ask her. But it actually was from an injury. So I didn't
Okay,
realize that. Well, she
yeah.
would not put me on hormones because my mother had a blood clot, and she put me on Effexor, something for depression or
Okay, yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
It didn't help. And finally, and she didn't believe me. I was 47. So by this time I hadn't had a period in like 11 months, and I was heading, well, you're too young. And I said, well, my mom was 43, you know, and she's like, you're too young, but we'll do your levels anyway, which sometimes the levels aren't accurate, but they were showing that I was definitely perimenopausal. And I finally was like, I'm not going back to her. And I went to another doctor. So like, it's been 11 months, but everything in your level is showing that you're a perimenopausal. And I did get testosterone, had to be made at a compounding place.
Right.
But when I saw a nurse practitioner, because I had to change appointments, the practitioner was like, I can't write your testosterone prescription. She said the same thing that yours did. She said, I can do your estrogen patch, I can do your progesterone, but I can't do your testosterone. So yeah,
Huh.
it's
I
just,
find that so like now I actually really need to figure out why that is because I'm so curious. It's
yeah,
like,
it's doctors can write it, but it has to be, yeah, they in the UK it is approved, and I believe Australia, and I think there's another country, but the UK it is approved, but you have to say in the UK that it is for sexual dysfunction or something like that. But you can't say, hey, it's going to be good for your brain.
right.
It has to be, oh, I'm not pleasing my man. you
I was
know.
going to make a joke earlier about it must be some misogynistic
Oh,
reason, but I
definitely.
guess it is, right?
Definitely. Like, it's sad that you would probably the way you could get this approved is to say, it's diminishing my marriage.
Yeah.
It is
My
diminishing
poor man is
my
suffering.
poor man is suffering. Poor guy, because sex feels like bliss, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are things too that I didn't realize. You didn't really hear about it out there. Like, I thought there was something wrong with me. Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say how bad this is and how painful this is, how this can be, what's going on. If there's something wrong with me, finally you're hearing, hey, this happens to a lot of people and there's things you can do about it. And, but the testosterone really is helpful for libido. It is, but there are also thinking about muscle strength and brain health as well. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous what we have to go through. And you do want to be careful because I have heard from many doctors that they're very hesitant about pellets. I did do it one time, and then we talked to Dr. Lisa Larkin. She does Miss Medicine out
Yeah.
of Cincinnati, concierge medicine, and she was telling us about pellets. She said, here's the thing, you can't get it out. Then it's time in 4 months to go get your other pellet. And they're putting that in again, and the testosterone can build up. You do want to be careful with the testosterone pellets.
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought I did the pellets because I thought it was going to be easier. They cut like a little stitch right back here. They put the pellet in. And then you like patch it up and you can't hit that in the shower for like 4 days. Then you have to go back every 4 months and have it done again. And I'm like, well, this isn't easier.
Yeah.
I think I'll just go and put the cream on.
Yeah. The
So,
cream sounds like the better option. I'll have to do some research on that. I'm taking progesterone now.
mhm.
I have to say, first, when I first started taking it, I didn't really notice any difference. And then my doctor said, okay, do for 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. And then I noticed the 2 weeks on, I was sleeping
Yes.
so well.
Yes.
And then I said to her, okay, I need to take this all the time. So now I take it every day except for 4 days out of the month. And my husband's like, I hate it because you sleep too well because apparently I snore. I actually don't believe that. I think he's lying.
I do remember I didn't realize, like, when I started it, either I didn't read or they told me and it went over my head. And I was getting really tired in the afternoon, like super, and even one time I was driving back and I was like trying to stay awake, just really like everything, turning the air conditioner up and the radio full blast and everything. And I found out when I went back for like a checkup and they said, are you getting tired in the afternoon? And I said, yeah. They said, okay, we're going to cut your progesterone back a little bit.
Oh,
But
okay.
like you, I was kind of still peri when I started the hormones, and they just had me on progesterone initially.
Yeah.
And then when I quit having my period, they put me on estrogen as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so I find it kind of like just all like the hormones and everything is very overwhelming to me because there's so much information out there and
Mhm.
trying to decide like who are the legit ones. That's why most of the time I just kind of listen to Dr. Jen Gunter because I feel like she's got the best, oh my gosh, what's the word? The word just escaped me.
Experience or
Yeah, the reputation.
okay,
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
but yeah,
I love what's come about with the telehealth because that's another problem. There are women that live in different parts of the US or anywhere where they have to drive forever even to get to an OBGYN.
yeah.
I mean, just to get and to be examined, they have to drive that far to get there. Um, I love the telehealth out there. I love Alloy, Electra, MIDI Health, just all the things I do go through Alloy
Okay.
I go there for my vaginal estrogen because I think my it was something with my insurance, wasn't my doctor's fault, but the insurance not wanting to cover like all like the vaginal estrogen for as much as I needed it. Like they wouldn't renew my prescription for it. So I just go through Alloy and I get it there.
It's so funny too.
It
Like we lived in the US for a year, so our insurance runs differently in Canada because we have socialized medicine,
right.
right? But like I said, we lived in Austin for a year and not understanding that medical system. I remember when we lived there and I had to go and get some blood work done and I had my insurance card, whatever. I went to a lab and the woman acted impatient with me and passed me back the card. And she said, your insurance doesn't cover it here. And I went, okay. She's like, well, if you get blood work done here, it's going to cost you, I can't remember, she said $170 or something. And I went, I'm Canadian and I'm here now.
I can't remember. I just got prescribed and my insurance, well, I had a breast reduction surgery. I was
Yeah,
like a G.
right.
And my insurance did the run around, and it wore me down. Like I would call one number and another, and I just paid for it. I
Yeah.
just paid for it out of pocket because I was like,
Honestly, I swear, and not to be like anti men or whatever, but I swear it's like anything that if a man needs to have
oh, yeah,
approval,
vasectomy.
yeah, they're like, no problem. But like
Yes.
women, they're like, are you sure that you need that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had the mummy hernia repair, the
oh,
diastasis
yeah.
recti.
Yes. Yes.
And I remember when I went to talk to my doctor, like every time I would get my period, I have had 3 children, right? Every time I would get my period, I would bloat up so much that I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. And I said to my doctor, I don't understand why this keeps happening. And I also hate when I have my period. I mean, now I still get my period, but I don't bloat. Well, I've had the
Like that.
surgery too. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I heard that episode. I was listening to that episode. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then she was just like, "Well, you have the muscle wall split; those are all of your organs coming forward." So, and explained to me like why it's important to get it repaired. So I went, and then we were living in Singapore at the time. We had a consultation, and basically the surgeon said, "Yeah, like your muscle wall is split, and it's not protecting your organs anymore." And it's so funny because in Singapore, it runs on insurance, right? So basically you have to send a quote from the surgeon and the explanation as to why they feel you need the surgery. And then it's up to the insurance company to approve it or not. And it's so funny because being a hairstylist, I have so many clients, of course, that are female. A lot of clients of mine in Singapore had similar surgeries. And it was almost like 50%. It's like roulette, right? You just kind of
Yeah.
toss out your insurance papers and see if they approve it or not. And I swear, if it was a male
Oh,
needing the
no.
surgery, they'd be like, oh, of course. And
Oh, you
take some
poor
extra time off work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's everything. Like when you get women get IUDs.
Oh, yeah.
Just here you go. It's painful. Oh, you're getting a vasectomy. Oh, here. You know,
Here's a teddy bear to snuggle.
I know. And, that's what drives me batty. It's like I would love to move up there with you right now,
We have a
but
guest room.
no, it's like right now, I've kind of going through this whole thing and I love my husband and I have a son and they're wonderful people and not all men are bad. Not all men are bad.
Of
In
course.
fact, I think it's sad. I think it's probably the jerky men that are the
Yeah.
loudest that
Yeah.
give men a bad reputation. They
Yeah.
actually do. And just
Yeah.
as you said, like the extreme with people of complaining or that are obnoxious give women
Yeah.
a bad reputation. I think it's
Absolutely.
these loud, jerky
Yeah.
men that
Yeah.
do that and give men a bad reputation. But it is amazing just that disparity right there too. Like, like if your muscles are not protecting your organs, if you're in a wreck, how dangerous is that going to be? I mean, it's dangerous enough if you hit your stuff. I know we have airbags and all this stuff now, but if you're in an accident, if something runs into you, how dangerous is that? For your vital organs
Yeah.
to not be protected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there
I
should
know.
be should be
It's
reason
crazy.
enough. Yeah.
And even, I would think that if you're in a situation where it's like you're looking for insurance to cover it, or even if they were to cover a percentage, but to kind
Mhm.
of come back with like, no, not covered,
Right.
period. Do you have any coping strategies either that you've learned from your guests or from yourself personally for women that are going through any kind of frustrations or changes with perimenopause and menopause?
It,
And understanding that there's so much to it that maybe that's too much of a broad question.
Now, I think it's okay to talk about it. First of all, one thing Colleen and I always say, and you did this as well. If you go to a doctor and you're not being listened to, it is okay to break up with your doctor. It is okay to do that. I did it. You did it. Go to someone else that's going to listen to you because you deserve to be listened to and that your issues are real. And there are places that you can go. Menopause Society, menopause.org. Go to menopause.org and they will listen, or you will find someone there to listen to. What you're going through is real. It's valid. Like you're having night sweats. There are things out there like cooling pajamas, sleep with a fan, things like that will help you so much. Rest. My favorite blanket, Rest blanket, REST. And I think that they even have in the US, you have the, if you get the extra, I think they call it HCA. I'm not sure what they call it.
Okay.
You get extra benefits. So you
Okay.
have certain amount of money that you can use toward just
Or
cash
like a
things.
budget to, yeah.
Yes. And so if you have that in your plan, I believe Rest blankets might be HCA or HFA, HSA. I don't know what it's called.
One of those.
Approved, one of those.
Yeah.
Approved. So those are great. I do a cooling weighted blanket.
Okay.
Mine's by Blankwell. If you like the weighted blanket, but it's also a cooling one. So there's weighted blankets, but this is a weighted cooling blanket. They're great. If hormones are going to be helpful for you, they're not big and bad and as scary as you thought they were. So look into that. It may not be for you, or you may not want to do it.
And I guess too, if you have a good doctor, like you're saying, that you can ask the questions and then they can, and trying things like I was saying earlier, I tried the progesterone at first. Didn't think it was working. And now I realized for me, it really was working.
Right. And sleep's so important. And that's another thing is to give it time to work. Colleen and I always say that we want our daughters to have that information out there because when they get to this time of life, they can just take it for granted that it is out there.
For sure. I think you mentioned it earlier too, that there's so many of us having this conversation that it's no longer a taboo subject. I mean, at one point talking about periods was very hush hush,
Yeah.
And now it's like you go into some of the universities and they have just like free
That's so
tampons in the
great. Love
bathrooms,
it.
you know, it's
Yeah.
like it's no
Yeah.
longer taboo, you know,
Right.
and the
Right.
same thing with perimenopause and menopause. Like
Right.
it should be every woman on the planet goes through it.
Right.
Right.
And to take away the embarrassment, like you said, the taboo, take away that embarrassment. I know that you make a big deal about this, and it is a big deal. You've got to be careful about people out there trying to sell you stuff that is not valid.
Yeah.
You do need to watch that.
The
And
meno washing.
yes, just they see the dollar signs, which it's on the one hand, you want people to say, hey, we are the biggest consumers. We spend the money. This
Yes.
age, the women of this demographic, we spend the money. So some are catching on to it and some are putting out stuff that you're like, ugh,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Just, you do need to be careful, look for studies and listen to professionals and see who's backing this.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And listen to yourself. Your
Yes.
guest I was listening to earlier, I think it was a guest, or were you guys quoting someone else where this woman had said, the person that needs to like me is me.
Yeah, it might have been Carrie Devine. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
perfect.
So it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bridgett.
This was
I
so
really
fun.
appreciate
Thank
it. Yeah.
you. Your podcast is so fun.
Thank you.
I love the one about the gray hair, about the lady letting her hair gray.
Yeah, my friend Linda. So she
Yes.
lives in Texas. So she's originally from Texas. We met in Singapore where she was a TV host in Singapore. I guess you listened to the podcast, but
Yeah.
wanted to grow her hair out. And she was basically told she'd be fired if someone's at my house and my dogs are barking.
It's funny. My daughter's dog is here. And I was like, is that her dog? Is that spooky?
I'm like, that's a sign that we're wrapping up. Thanks for tuning in to the Fuck You 50s. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow and rate the podcast. And we would love to connect with you on Instagram. So be sure to follow us at the Fuck You 50s. The Fuck You 50s is hosted by Andrea Claire. See you next time.